we're looking over at this mindfulness meditation for pain relief by Jon Kabat-Zinn. Again, Jon Kabat-Zinn, he's a professor of medicine at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. He founded mindfulness-based stress reduction. He's an author of 15 books. He essentially brought mindfulness to the United States of America, and made it. He created, the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction class. And so in chapter 1, it's learning to live with pain. And then in chapter 2, it's about delving into the heart of the matter. Delving into the heart of the matter. And so the Gestalt, I'm just going to read a few quotes from here. Okay, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the Gestalt of it for you guys, and then having any discussions, and then our practice is really I'm taking his practices at the end of the book, so I'm using his language, and he is a ultimate pro at this, and you might like his language. Right? You might like the language he uses. You may not. It might be too verbose. It might be, he might talk too much for you. Although you're hearing it through my voice, he has the same instructions in CD form. Okay. And so just looking at this, so the first 2 chapters are learning to live with pain and diving into the heart of the matter. And so essentially what he's saying in these 2 chapters is, and we've talked a bit about this, and oftentimes it sort of comes up as, why in the world would I ever do that? Because we've been, from birth, all we've been trying to do with our pain is get rid of it, right? To suppress it, to change it, to alter it, right? And then his first 2 chapters are essentially like, let's actually go into it. Yeah. So here's some of the quotes that I pulled out from it, and that he pulled out himself. Everybody is unique, and everybody ultimately has to find their own way to live and live well in the face of the difficult, the challenging and unwanted, which sooner or later arise for all of us in life. Right? So how do we live well in the unwanted? How do we continue to live well in the unwanted? Right? And you start seeing these themes, right? How do people continue to live well despite things that they don't want, right? Nobody wants back surgery. It's not like something that you're like going out being like, oh, I can't wait till I'm 70 years old to get back surgery, right? Or whatever, whatever. It's just not, right? But sometimes it's like, man, I tried to avoid it. I tried to do all these things. I tried to do this, right? And the bones were just pinching on the nerves so bad, and I was so debilitated, whatever it might be, right? Whatever your personal reason is, right? Whatever your own journey is, that it happens. And so how do we still find ways to continue to live well, right? And so we could all go down the tired and sore, right? And that's, to me, that's not living well, right? That's actually choosing not to live well. Okay. And so, everybody's unique. So what might work for me may not work for you, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why, right, we try to cover so many different techniques, and we do it over and over and over again, different techniques, because one moment, this technique might work well for you, and another moment, another technique might work well for you, right? And when we went into the New York Times article on Roland Griffiths, right, who wants stage 4 metastatic colon cancer? Right? And actually him sort of going through the mental states that he could live in. Well, I could live in depression, and I could live in anxiety, and I could live in panic and fear. And I just chose that those were not wise states to be in. Right. So there's this capacity, as limited as we might think it is at times, to choose. And that's a very, that can be a very important thing. All right. He has a short paragraph here. It's called "The Power of Attention." Right, the power of attention, and I love that because we talk about attention a lot. And the first part of mindfulness is understanding that you have attention. That's the next part is that you can actually direct it. Right, we talk about being able to direct your attention to my words or your hand, or if I was holding a pen right now, right, you can pay attention to the pen, or you could pay attention to the smell in your room. If it smells bad, I apologize for directing your attention to that. Studies show that the greater the intensity of distressing sensations, so the greater the intensity of distressing sensations, pain, right? Unpleasant sensations, whether they're emotionally or physically, the more awareness strategies are beneficial and the less distraction strategies are effective in bringing relief. Tuning in is far more effective than tuning out. The pain itself, which you might sometimes feel is your worst enemy, has the potential to eventually become your teacher and ultimately your ally and your friend if you learn to listen deeply to it. If you learn to listen deeply to it. The invitation is to throw yourself into the dance, whether the music is always of your choosing or not, as if it were both an experiment and an adventure. In fact, it has the potential to be the adventure of reclaiming your life to whatever degree possible while you have the chance. And the choice, right? You might not choose to have back surgery, right? You might not choose to have metastatic colon cancer. You might not choose to have whatever it is. But the choice to be aware is your choice. I like this term. He's taken thousands of people with chronic pain conditions through a mindfulness program that turning toward and engaging with your pain through the practice of mindfulness, even for brief periods of time, when coupled with an open-minded skepticism and a willingness to experiment with what might be possible in your own mind and body and life, can provide a welcome, critically important, and effective strategy when embarking on this journey and undertaking this interior work. So there's this open-mindedness, right? This sort of beginner's mind, but an open-minded skepticism. Like many of us, sometimes when we hear mindfulness or paying attention to something can help with pain, there's definitely a skepticism about it. That's not possible, right? It's just like, I'm sorry, I need my pain meds. You know what I mean? Like I just need to kick this thing. I need to dull it, or I need my injection, or I need my surgery, right? And sort of like when I get that, then my pain is going to go. And so we're very skeptic, right? Very, and yet we're here. And so there's this. It's like a skeptic. It's like, well, what do I have to lose? Well, maybe somebody would argue, You're investing all this time into it, right? And then you're sort of like, okay, well, if it doesn't help with my pain, maybe it'll help with something else, right? So there's a goal, sort of a goal that we're trying to achieve, right? So keeping that, we all might be skeptics. Maybe some of you aren't skeptics anymore because it's helped. But at the beginning, sort of, that open-minded skepticism is good, but keeping the skepticism open-minded. I kind of like that play of words that he uses. And then a willingness to experiment, right? A willingness to try things. And a lot of times I do feel like we are our own experiment. Like we get to experiment essentially on ourselves and see, did that work? Did that not work? You know what? For the first 30 years of my life, my experiment did not work. And guess what? You get to, well, if you're still alive, right? You get to change. You get to try a different experiment. And each moment you can try a different experiment. Each moment is actually a time to sort of try a different experiment. There is nothing like unremitting or episodic pain that medicine does not have wholly effective ways of mitigating to motivate us to at least attempt to do something for ourselves when no one else, including your health care team, has been able to reliably deliver pain relief for you. Right. There is nothing like unremitting or episodic pain that medicine does not have wholly effective ways of mitigating to motivate us to at least attempt to do something for ourselves when no one else, including your health team, has been able to reliably deliver pain relief to you. We've probably all felt like that, right? I have a lot of patients who come in who are like, you're not taking care of my pain, right? It's a lot of external projections, and yet that's actually, yes, you're right. We've tried 1,000 things and your pain is still there. And you've had the surgeries and you've had the injections and you've had the 25 different medications and you've had this and you've had that, and it's still there, right? So then it's sort of like, okay, right? It's like now, right? So with that, those are all the external things. Now it's sort of like, okay, let's turn towards it. Pain may be unavoidable in life at times, but the suffering, in other words, how we relate to pain, is optional. The suffering is optional. The pain is not. The suffering is. The pain is not. The suffering is. Okay, what is it like for you to drop into this moment as it is, however it is, with full awareness of your experience? Right, so he takes people essentially into just noticing this moment. And we've done this a lot, right, in a lot of our meditations, just sort of trying to pay attention what's arising for us in this moment, full awareness, not changing anything, not wanting it to be different, despite our top methods of constantly resisting pain and trying to get rid of it, right? And so when we're delving into the heart of the matter, for instance, we're not resisting the pain. We're just opening. There's an opening to the experience in the present moment and noticing. That's it. So we're not resisting. If you were able to bring awareness to any aspect of your experience, you are already well on your way to developing a new and potentially healing relationship with your pain, and more importantly, with your own mind and body. Own mind and body, right? So yeah, your pain brings you in. And that's why, I say it's funny. It's like, That's why I went into pain management, is that brings you in, but yet it's actually the practice that then transforms your whole life. It can transform your whole life. So you come in because of the pain. So I have neck pain. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Right. And then we start talking about consciousness and awareness and attention. Like, what do you, the important part here, right? It's fantastic, right? If you can bring any ability of bringing awareness to any part of your experience, because when we pay attention to our experience, our experience, we might notice, oh my goodness, thoughts and emotions and sensations and all this stuff, right? And there's just this almost like an orchestra of stuff going on, where sometimes you go, ah, right, like that's too much, right? And so therefore, what do? We actually ask you to focus on something, right? So there's this in mindfulness, right? We call that the anchor. Right. So it's sort of like at the beginning of the practice, we do ask people, hey, find an anchor, find something that you can focus on. Notice the play of the mind, which is, I just asked you to focus on your breath or this burning candle or whatever it might be, or your feet on the floor. You weren't able to do that because nobody can sustain that when they're starting to practice like that. And so therefore we start to realize that the mind jumps around and wanders and things like that. And then we try to bring it back. Right. And then after a while, we drop the anchor, right? And now we're in awareness if we can be, right? But if we're just doing this practice for the first time, as we just pay attention to our experience, like, oh my goodness, there's a lot going on in there. How do I pay attention to that? Right? Right? And what he's saying is just pay attention to an aspect of it that you can. Right? Maybe it's a sensation. What's the strongest thing that's coming, that's arising? And simply pay attention to it, not allowing it to, let's say, take over, but just simply paying attention to it. Right? Oh, wow. Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts. And now I'm noticing sensations. And now I'm noticing the pain, my hip and my knee, and more thoughts. And it just kind of feels like a mess. Right? All right. So if you're able to bring awareness to any aspect of your experience, you're already well on your way to developing a new and potentially healing relationship with your pain. And more importantly, and I like that, right? More importantly, your mind and body. We had somebody, I'm not sure if I shared this, but we had somebody who came into our, we call it the functional restoration program. We call it the functional restoration program, which is FRP. And at the end of the program, we just ask them what they think, how they like it, stuff like that. And one lady, she renamed it the fully realizing my potential program, which I think is actually a good, that's sort of a good overarching, it's almost should be like the subtitle. We got the functional restoration program and the fully realizing your potential program, because that's kind of what we try to do, is like, we're in pain, but when we do these practices, we're actually really transforming our life in multiple different ways. Okay. So as like crazy and nuts as that seems, going into the pain, right? Try that out this week. See what happens. Right? Say, oh man, my neck is really hurting, or my low back is really okay. So I'm just gonna try not to resist it. I open up to the experience, and that's gonna be the one of the practices that we do today. Okay. All right. So let's go into our practice. All right, so this is some, again, his words, right? So the language may be a little different than what you're used to. That's perfectly fine. All right, so let's find a comfortable posture. Closing your eyes if you feel comfortable closing your eyes. It's important to find the most comfortable posture in which to practice, whether that is sitting or laying down, kneeling or even standing or squatting, if one of those postures works better for you. It helps to ask yourself, what would be most supportive for your body in this moment? Lying in bed or on a soft surface might be best, or sitting in a comfortable but supportive chair, or on a straight back chair. Only you can know, and it might take some experimenting until you know your body's basic needs and its limitations. Strange as it might sound, when we're dealing with a chronic pain condition, sitting on the floor might be worth a try. You can experiment with sitting on a firm meditation cushion, elevating your hips, depending on how flexible and open your hip joints are. And wherever the knees wind up, you can always prop them up with extra cushions or rolled up blankets. Perhaps it's more comfortable to sit, or lying down on your back with pillows bolstering your knees and head, or anything else you find pillows to help. Trust your intuition and keep experimenting with what works best for even short periods of time. What we're trying to do is minimize any discomfort to the degree that it is even possible. And dropping into this moment as it is, feeling the breath sensations in the body, either at the nostrils or at the belly, or anywhere else that they are most vivid for you. Whatever posture you adopt, seeing if you can now make contact with just one in-breath, and then the following out-breath. Making contact with just one in-breath and the following out-breath. And if so, then seeing if you can carry awareness over to the next in-breath. The next in-breath is going to come no matter how much pain you are feeling and no matter what is on your mind. So you can experiment with seeing if you can once again, with utter kindness towards yourself, Stay in touch with this new in-breath, or even half an in-breath. And if that is possible, then experimenting with letting your awareness and kindness carry over seamlessly to the out-breath. If it feels helpful, you can experiment with aiming your attention at one half breath at a time, and then sustaining it by seeing if you can continue on to the next half breath. Although there may be intense sensations calling for your attention from elsewhere in the body, you are experimenting with intentionally giving priority of attention to your breath, to aiming and sustaining, with the lightest of touches, but with intentionality, with resolve, in the spirit of simply opening to what might be possible in this moment of now. Simply taking things moment by moment, half breath by half breath, in a spirit of experimentation and discovery, and of reclaiming your body, your moments, and your life. If you find that even this strategy is only partially effective in keeping your attention focused on the breath, there is something else you can experiment with as well. You can intentionally include the region that is asking for your attention in the embrace of awareness, rather than trying to keep your attention focused solely on the breath sensations. If you find yourself being pulled to some discomfort from any part of your body, maybe you are wishing the pain would just ease up a bit or would go away completely so you can have your old life back. If and when such thoughts arise, here is another strategy you might experiment with in such moments. See if you can breathe into the region that is hurting, as if you could direct the energy of the in-breath right into that region, wherever it is located. And then when it is time to breathe out, breathing out from there as well. In this way, you are coupling the breath with the sensations in the area that is hurting, and allowing awareness to hold them both simultaneously, moment by moment. Experiencing the breath gently bathing the region in question on each in breath, and experiencing it washing it out from that region on each out breath, like waves at the seashore. You're not trying to make the pain go away or diminish its intensity in any way. You're simply experiencing any and all sensations in that region along with the breath sensations, experiencing the waves of the breath and the waves of sensation washing in and out, like waves washing up on the beach and then washing back out again, over and over and over again. Breathing in and sending your breath, directing your breath to any area of your body that is grabbing your attention, and breathing out and washing that area. Coupling your breath with any sensations in your body. Just noting how you feel. And as we bring this practice to an end today, seeing if throughout your day or your weekend you can bring your breath to any areas of discomfort or pain you may be feeling, and washing those areas out, washing those areas out. Like the ocean bathing a shore, breath is coming in, going out. And now taking 2 or 3 deep breaths. Opening your eyes if your eyes were closed. Reorienting yourself to your room. Stretching if you feel like you need to stretch. And just reflecting on your practice. All right. Have a beautiful weekend and see you next week. Bye bye.